Everyone, welcome to Unit 8, Module 42. Today we're talking about expressed emotion. Here are your learning objectives, and here's your vocab. So, how do we detect emotion in others? Well, Paul Ekman is a famous researcher in this area, and he studies facial expressions and how we detect emotions that way. He's particularly well known for detecting lies. Okay, so if you look at this photo on the right, the Duchenne smile is the picture B. So this is, the Duchenne smile is a natural smile where the cheekbones are elevated, the under the eye is, muscles are activated, and it's like a true smile. So like there's kind of like that smile that you do for maybe a photograph that someone can maybe tell is like just like you're holding your face that way. And then there's that true smile. And I always feel like the eyes are like the easiest place to notice it. So if you look at the difference between A and B, there you go. So 10-second videos shown to people in a study of a speed dating interaction. And just within that 10-second clip, people could detect when a person was attracted to another person. So we are really good at detecting emotion, and we detect it quickly. And we're even better if it's a nonverbal threat as opposed to a nonverbal sign of attraction. So showing them a big group of people, we are very quick to find the one face that is angry as opposed to all the other faces that are happy or neutral. We're quick to find that. So, detecting emotions in others. So, introverts are more inward thinking, and so they tend to really notice and observe other people's emotions, and so they tend to be better at that. Extroverts are better at expressing their emotion in clear ways, so they're generally easier to read their emotions. But our gestures, our facial expressions, our tone of voice, all of those are an important part of someone being able to detect how we're feeling and the way that we're saying it. Because you can say the same sentence and say it in a joking way, and say the sentence and it comes off as just offensive or rude. So the way that all these other things, the gestures, the voice tone, all of that, play a factor in interpretation by the other person. So with written text, you kind of lose that. So we do things such as like emojis, for example, to kind of express, or LOL, things like that, so that we try to express like the meaning behind the words. Because left with just the words, it's kind of unclear exactly what you're trying to say. So if you look at conversation 1 down here versus conversation 2 and 3 that has emojis, there are different reactions because of those emojis. So just like it adds clarity to have those nonverbal cues, even in text. So gender, how do we differ with our emotion? So women are better at reading emotional cues than men. There was a big study that Barrett did in 2000, and she asked people to describe how they feel in situations. So men responded with more simpler emotional reactions. And in a huge study, 26 cultures studied, 23,000 people, women reported to be more open. This is self-reporting. Women reported to be more open to feelings than men did. And this kind of goes along with what we think about the differences between men and women in terms of emotion, because there's a very strong perception that women are more emotional than men. But there's so much that goes into our perception of that. When we think about, and we've talked about how alike men and women are biologically, like this is a very sociocultural perception, and just the ability for women to express their emotions more openly is also sociocultural. And when women are usually described as being emotional, or their emotions are involved in the description of how they are, it's often, or more often than men, described as part of their disposition. Oh, they're a very emotional person. Whereas if it's a man, it's more about their circumstance causing the emotion. So this also just influences our perception. So it's like all of these are intertwined to make us feel like women are more emotional, then women feel more open to express themselves. So of course, they're better at reading emotional cues because they're allowed to be more in tune with it socioculturally. So gender, emotion, and nonverbal behavior. So the one exception to this that we just said with women being better at emotion reading is anger. Anger is viewed as a masculine emotion, and so men are more free to express it socioculturally. This image right here is a gender neutral face, and when in a study they had people determine the gender, the angry face was male and the smiling face. According to surveys, women are far more likely to describe themselves as empathetic. So again, this is in tune with our feeling of expressing emotion, but it's also now reading other people's emotion and being in tune with it. So physiological measures of empathy, like studying heart rate, also back up the idea that women are better at empathizing with others than men, but not as much as like self-studies show. So men are actually better at it than they express, because women are just more likely to express empathy. So we kind of go back to that sociocultural box that women and men are put in. So gestures vary from culture to culture. There's plenty of examples of this. That's Nixon giving the A-OK sign in Brazil, which was seen as an insult to them. There's many examples of this. Like, these things are not universal. There are places that encourage more individualism, like North America, for example. They're going to display more emotion. They're going to express their emotion more, whereas other cultures are kind of more encouraged to adjust to how others are or what they would be comfortable with and show less emotion. So places such as China. There are 6 universal facial expressions. Paul Ekman and a team of researchers asked people all over the world, all different cultures, to identify the emotions of these 6 images. So you can look at my list there: happiness, surprise, fear, sadness, anger, disgust, and see if you can identify them down below. But these were found to be universal, especially happiness and fear. Even blind children will make faces that are similar to these, especially with joy, with fear, sadness, and anger. So showing you that, like, it's a natural thing, not something that we necessarily look at others and learn how to do. There's something called the facial feedback effect, which has been put into question recently, but this is the tendency of facial muscles to trigger corresponding feelings. So, for example, they did a study where you had to hold a pencil in your mouth, like this woman is here, and they watched some cartoons. The people who held their pencil in the mouth and were kind of like forced to make that smiling face, the actual physical act of making the smile had them report feeling more amused at the cartoons than the people who did not. So Darwin kind of said this, that your outward expression intensifies the way you actually feel on the inside. So what you do, you become, in a sense, or how you act, you feel it. So finally, health psychology. This is a subfield of psychology that basically combines the medical knowledge that we know and with psychology. So it's a really new and very interesting division, a field in psychology. So they look at how our emotions, our personality, our outlook on things, how those things connect to our risk of disease. And they kind of use all of this biopsychosocial information to help us be healthier. So that wraps that up. So takeaways: humans are hardwired for nonverbal communication. We're very good at it. We have 6 universal facial expressions. Make sure you know them. Remember that sociocultural influences are really an important part of how we express emotions, not just gender, but also different cultures, even within the same country, different cultures. And then facial feedback theory is the idea that what we express outwardly, like if we hold a smile, then after a certain amount of time, we would actually feel happier. And then finally, health psychology is the marriage of psychology and our medical knowledge. So that wraps up Mod 42.